Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining today. I'll give it a few minutes before we get started. All right, great. Looks like we have a good amount of people here already showing up early this morning, so I'll let people kind of trickle in, but we'll go ahead and get started. Um, first of all, thank you everyone for joining us today for a Green Sports Alliance Green Game webinar. For anyone getting to know the Alliance, we are a membership-driven organization. We exist to leverage the power of sports to promote healthy, sustainable communities where we live, work, and play. If you're interested in becoming a member, you can email myself at mika@greensportsalliance.org or matt@greensportsalliance.org. I'll put the emails in the chat in a bit. So today, very in line with the theme of the week, as Green Sports Day is coming up, we're taking a deeper dive into how to host a green game. Before we get started, I have a few just updates to share from the Green Sports Alliance. As I just mentioned, Green Sports Day is October 6th, so that's coming up next week. If you have plans to celebrate, please let us know. If you'd like the Green Sports Day toolkit, send me an email and I'll shoot it over to you. We also have a symposium coming up. So the Strategy and Revenue Generation Symposium is on November 5th at Gillette Stadium. We definitely love to see you there. I'm going to put the link in the chat right now if you are interested in learning more. Oops, let me put that to everyone. And that symposium will be focusing very specifically on the strategy and revenue generation playbook, which we put out at the summit in Miami. If you haven't heard, we will be in Cleveland next year for the 2026 summit from May 5th to the 7th. So that's a little bit earlier than we usually host our summit. Prices will go up in a few months, so grab your early supporter tickets when you can. If you're a member, reach out to us for your membership discount. And then finally, our playbook themes we just are releasing coming up very soon. So this year, we will be focusing on sports apparel and revamping the 2018 fan engagement playbook. So we're really excited for those themes. Of course, they'll be published in 2026, and we'll have, conversations at the summit, symposium, webinars, all focused on those topics. So if you're interested in participating, whether that's submitting a case study or contributing as an author, please let me know. Send me an email and I'll reach out to get you involved. So throughout this webinar, if you have questions, please add them to the Q&A box, not the chat. We'll be sure to answer them throughout the webinar or at the end. And now I will go ahead and introduce the panelists. So we have moderating the panel, Andrea Poveda, Senior Sustainability Impact Manager at Honeycomb Strategies. We have Heidi Mallon, Special Projects Manager at Indiana Convention Center and Lucas Oil Stadium, and Mario Batts, Manager, Operations, Sustainability and Event Operations for the Memphis Grizzlies and FedEx Forum. And then we have the St. Louis City SC having some technical issues right now, so we will hope to. Oh, there we go. Courtney joining right now with St. Louis City SC. So glad to have you on. And yeah, so thank you all for joining. And from there, I'll pass it over to Andrea.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mika, and welcome everyone. As Mika said, I'm Andrea Poveda, Senior Sustainability Impact Manager at Honeycomb Strategies, and I'm really thrilled to be here with you all. Thank you for joining, and thanks to our great panelists for being here as well. So yeah, to kick off, in my work with venues and teams and managing sustainability and impact for sports leagues, I've really seen how powerful it is when sustainability becomes a part of the fan experience, and I'm sure a lot of you can resonate with that. And a green game in particular, I think, is more than a theme night. It's really a chance, I think, for, teams and venues to showcase commitments, to test new ideas, and invite fans to join in on this really important work that we're all doing. So, um, as something that's like very visible and celebratory, I think when it's done well, it really sticks with people long after the game ends. So, with that, here's what we can expect today. And Mika already alluded to this, but we'll hear stories from, I think, three very different perspectives. We have an NFL stadium, an NBA arena, an MLS club. And so you'll get a sense of the variety of approaches out there. And then at the end, I think we'll bring together the panelists for some reflections, and Mika will moderate a couple of audience questions that you'll be able to submit through the Q&A function. And then we'll wrap up by introducing a brand new resource, the Green Game Playbook, which was designed by my team and I at Honeycomb Strategies to bring these ideas to life in your own venue. So hopefully that is a treat for everyone, and you guys will have access to that after the webinar. So yeah, as you listen, I'd really just encourage you to think about what a green game could look like in your own context, whether you're planning your first one, and whether you're building on years of progress. And I think you'll hear a lot of great inspiration today. So with that, let's get started. Heidi, if you don't mind, I will start off with you. So in our conversations, I think you were very open about, working within the limitations of, for example, an older building, a tighter budget. And I think a lot of folks here can probably resonate with that. I think budget is usually just such a big, topic and can be seen obviously as a huge obstacle for folks. But can you share, I think, what you've been able to do? And just the meaningful progress I think that you guys have made with those constraints. And maybe I think also just highlight the role that sponsors or creative partnerships have played in making a green game possible at your venue.
Sure, sure. Yes, I would like to say that this is our second year of hosting a green game. So just last year was our very first one. And really within the last couple of years, we are an older building. But within the last couple of years, I've gotten some additional moral support, not so much on the financial support side, but moral support, which is important to get things going. So I've really tried to take any small wins I can to get started, how to make people feel good, how to make people feel like it is making a difference. So I set up a green team with our facility. I actually, and with Lucas Oil Stadium, we also run the Indiana Convention Center, which is directly across the street. So I have two very big buildings, that have differences. They have different clienteles and different, purposes. So it's makes it a little bit challenging in that sense. But we started our green team. We started a herb garden over here at the stadium, which has been just really fun, and just has gotten people involved and seeing and touching and feeling and watering those plants and things that just is not something that happens around here on a typical daily basis. But I get very excited when I just harvested a huge batch of jalapeno peppers, which are going to be used this weekend on our barbecue boards. So it's just fun to see that. And I think people appreciate and see that. We also have been trying to do some things with donating back to our community. Sometimes we have events that are here and then leave, and then they leave things with us. And we try to get those things then put to a special purpose. So with all of that, we have been able to, we started our green game last year. We are doing it again this year. It was very successful. It's kind of a green weekend for us with the Indianapolis Colts, as they are hosting also an e-recycling day on Saturday morning. So they have a drive-through set up where people are able to just, drive through and drop off any e-recycling. And the cheerleaders will be here, and there's gear that they're handing out to the first like 400 participants. And it's just a lot of hype and fun, and just making it a successful, nice little thing, and helping people, get rid of or those electronics in a good way. And then Sunday, of course, will be our green game. Oh, let me back up real quick. Actually, we're talking about sponsorship and everything. Republic is our waste hauler, and it has a sponsorship relationship with the Colts. So they are very involved in this e-recycling event as well. Although they themselves do not collect e-recycling, they have hired a company to do that, and it's a local woman-owned business. And again, it's a lot of good things that make people feel good, and it's helping them, it's helping us, it's helping the community, and it's helping this, woman-owned business. So there's just a lot of great things about that overall. And then Sunday for our game, Colts game, Coca-Cola is very much a supporter of the Colts and recycling here. And they were very prominent in our green game last year. They came out and they have a bunch of games, sustainability games. They actually have a sorting table where you're able to, they get people, competing against each other, make it fun. There's a big Plinko game. There's just all sorts of little handouts and fun things that they're doing that makes a big presence for Coke. So last year they started with some of the clear bag, clear stream, clear bag recycling bins. And that really, it seems very simple, but it helped our touchdown town outside a lot, because there's a lot of drinking going on outside pregame before the game and before the gates, actually before and after the gates open, but people are outside for quite a bit. And those clear bags were instrumental in helping people put their containers into that and not put their piece of pizza or whatever else in there. So we've really started, Coke donated a number more containers for us this year. So we're doing that every game, and we're tracking the recycling that we're doing directly from Touchdown Town. And it's just been, very impactful and visual. It's a great visual out there. And education, just making it fun. I think Coke has been very good about that. We just are trying to make, I think in the Midwest, we don't have a lot of the legislation or laws about recycling. So some people know about it, some people don't. But we're thinking that if we have 65,000 people per Colts game, and then really in the building on an annual basis, over about 1.5 million people, if we can do something to help educate people, even if it's 1 or 2 bottles, but then it multiplies exponentially over time, and with our visitors and working with the city. We have a group that the venues are all trying to work together to see if we can get some consistent messaging out to help teach this to our residents. We think that will help. And maybe there's other partnerships as well in the future that we can help build on with that.
Definitely. Yeah, no, and I think that in particular, I think that experience around, educating fans and organizing a lot of these activations in a market that, doesn't really necessarily see recycling as a norm, or to your point, there aren't any legislative requirements. I'm curious, like, what you've learned from that process. Like, have you found that you've sort of kind of demystified that, where your fans do actually seem to care about it and they resonate with, this education that you guys are hosting at the venue?
I do think so. I think people are becoming more aware. I'm out there typically and kind of have taken some pictures and things, and just gotten some to talk to a number of people, and they're excited about it. And I think it is a feel good thing if you put a purpose behind it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Heidi. Yeah, because again, even during, my professional travel working with a lot of different venues, I think you see them, I think, evolve even when there isn't that legislative requirement, and you actually see a lot of really positive I think reception from fans, and they're happy, I think, when you implement a lot of these really, innovative and I think positive initiatives. So yeah, it's really great to see that you've found
Right.
with your fan base.
We have other, it's interesting too, we have other events, future events coming into the building, and I have a specific event that I meet with monthly in regards to what are we doing to help make their event more green and in all different ways, so it's, I think everybody's probably seeing more and more that the event bids and everything, they're asking for more of this data information and not just, pretty pictures or, yeah, we do this or that, but just really a lot of more data and analytical information on sustainability.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, well, thank you for sharing that, Heidi. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to hear. I think other kind of surprising moments or lessons learned, I think when we kind of circle back. But Mario, I think I'll jump over to you. Yeah, I think I'd love to hear about your experience, and I think everyone else would too, because you mentioned that your first green game, which was recent, I think came together later than you would have liked, but it still worked out really well. I think you've talked to me a lot about like the logistical components and the planning and just how crucial that is, or that you've found through your lessons learned. So looking back, what did you learn about planning and logistics, whether it was, timing or communication, internally or externally, or getting buy-in even, from your team, that you would like to pass along to someone hosting maybe their first screen game?
Yes, timing was probably the biggest factor for us. Having that buy-in from your internal partners, because that's the standalone sustainability guy here in Memphis. Uh, you kind of have to have in operations, and so I had to partner with our community, our our game day team to make sure that we can plan the game or they didn't have any other activations. And so that was my biggest hurdle, is that we planned so late and most of our game activations had already kind of been acquired or been scheduled. And so it was just trying to work around the hurdle of, well, this was the activation. I think our my actual game night was partnered with our HBCU night, and so we kind of the HBCU component was kind of like just bringing awareness that HBCUs are out there, and so we kind of had to fit in where we could. Timeouts, we would run uh, tips on our jumbotron, or the game presentation team was able to do a skit where they kind of educated fans on what products were recyclable, what products were trash, um, and then probably could have had planned a little better, and maybe we didn't have the sponsorship or from anyone at that time, so our giveaway for the game was just a cork coaster. And so, yeah, planning ahead really would help a lot. Uh, we had recently partnered with Coke for being a sponsor, and they wanted to help out on the game night, but because we were planning so late, it was impossible to get them to help out. So this season coming up, we've already in the talks. We've already identified a couple of nights that we may target for our green game. Coke is already on board. Uh, yeah, so that planning piece is very, very important.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think Yeah, you mentioned, I think earlier on, getting buy-in, from your internal team. And I think you've mentioned previously, like in our prior discussions, that, even how you communicate with your internal team is also really important, kind of setting expectations. And I think you gave this really funny, but I think relatable example just around how when you're trying to host a game that's maybe off the grid or powered fully by renewables, that folks thought that meant literally the game would be dark. When you were telling people this, they're like, what do you mean? Will all the lights be off? We won't be running on power. So, it's a silly example, but I think it's true. I think it's very relatable. Um, for folks who aren't in the weeds of sustainability day to day, right? Like you're the one man show here. Obviously you work across teams and everything, but I'd love to hear, I think, how you navigate that. I think communicating internally is, just as important as how you communicate externally to your fans. So how do you navigate that?
Uh, Luckily this season, we learned a lot from last season. So this season I'm working directly with, our community, investment team. Uh, they have a guy that me and him are starting to meet and discuss ideas. Like recently, we've been trying to come up with a name for the game night. So we've had a couple of brainstorming sessions to try to get that name out there. Think we may have landed on one, but I'm not quite sure yet. We just got to get approval. But yeah, and then actually after the game last year, I was adamant, like I'm going to people's desk, I'm sending emails, I'm holding conversations like make sure that you keep us in mind for our green game night before you schedule uh all of the game activations. And so yeah, I'm trying to be in people's face more. They don't forget me.
Great. No, I mean, kudos to you. I think a lot of us in this industry can relate, I think, to those obstacles, but I think it's a testament to your work and I think your collaboration, I think across the board that, even with certain challenges and obstacles, I think you were able to host a really great game. You have, I think, a very clear set of lessons learned that, you're taking into account for the next game. And, this season will be different. And I think that's the whole point. It's not perfection, but I think there's something really crucial, I think, to learn from every experience, especially when you're trying out a new initiative at your venue. So yeah, kudos to you, Mario, seriously. Um, well, with that, let's see. Courtney, I have a question for you, and um, something that really stood out to me, I think, in our conversation previously was your emphasis on making sustainability a part of the culture and the fan experience, right? Not just one other theme night, which is valuable in and of itself. But I think, clearly you're asking yourself the question, what comes next? What's kind of the next phase here after just having kicking it off, with these theme nights? So, how do you approach your design of a green game so it feels memorable, emotional, and just overall, I think, integrated into the match experience rather than feeling a little more performative? Oh, I think you're muted.
The rookie mistake. I think for us, the big thing that we've figured out, we have only been around for, this is our third season. So we're a pretty new team altogether. And we did start out knowing that we wanted to make sustainability a pillar of, I work for St. Louis City SC. We're St. Louis's MLS team. We're an expansion team that started in 2023, was our first season. And we opened our stadium in November 2022. And when we did, we knew there were certain things we wanted to do in terms of sustainability. We knew we were going to do on-site sorting. we knew that we were going to focus on lowering particularly plastic waste. So we opened as a zero consumer plastic stadium. So everything you eat from is compostable, everything you drink from is recyclable. So there was a lot of front end, kind of like decisions made that made certain things easier from a sustainability standpoint. So, which is great. But regardless, whether or not you have that type of buy-in, or whether you're just kind of working through various types, the green game for us is a chance to really celebrate and solidify the things that are happening year round, as opposed to a sudden surge in interest in recycling or composting or kind of one-offs. Because I think for a lot of our fans are season ticket holders, about 85% of them. They see a lot of theme nights. They see a lot of different, things going on. And so trying not to kind of lose that momentum, and just say, oh, it's a theme night, we're celebrating sustainability, but rather to be like, this is how you contribute every single time you're at a match to the overall goals. These are our sustainability goals, or it's important to us as a stadium. Here's what we're doing, and this is what we've done over the course of the year. So we focus a lot on our average waste diversion rates, how much waste has been diverted from the landfill. We highlight sponsors who are work with us in our sustainability programming, or features around the stadium that are part of our sustainability program. For example, we have do I have one here? I do. I have an older version. We have a refillable Rambler from Yeti that can be brought back into the stadium and be refilled for free soft drink and water refills. And this was a partnership with Yeti that we did, and it has like various types of branding on it. And so that is part of our sustainability messaging. And that was last year's. This year's has like our goal zero, kind of like green game, like logo on it as well, to kind of help promote that year round. But it gives us a chance to talk about that, or like celebrate our sorting, the people that do our sorting. So we do like media tours, influencer tours, or we take them down and meet the folks in housekeeping to do all the sorting and to see like the sorting operation and take videos. And we do our media scrums down there and things like that. So it's a way for us to kind of like talk about the overall process of what we do, as opposed to focusing on the one-off events that we're having for that particular night, because we want this as a chance to solidify what our goals are overall, as opposed to one-time events that, people feel good about, but then generally forget about in the overall course of things.
Yeah, no, that's a really important point. And I mean, clearly, yeah, I think you are in a very unique position where, to your point, you've been lucky enough, I think, to have that foundation where, like you said, there were a lot of leadership decisions, I think, coming into it that really allowed, I think, for that door to be pretty wide open, I think, from the start. But you guys are doing really great work. And so clearly, you're doing your part, I think, as far as the venue operations and, how you communicate that to your fans on a consistent basis. But I'm curious, and I've seen this, from my own perspective, working at a sports league. I think, players and alumni, I think, play a really huge role too. And ultimately, I think, that's what the fans are there for. I think seeing players and any other alumni, I think, participate and be invested in these initiatives, I think really, right, like pulls at the heartstrings. I think it makes it a lot more emotional and personal. So what role do you see them playing, or have they played in your own messaging, and helping that land with fans more?
Yeah, so one of the things we do is we have like a community survey that goes out to players at the beginning of the year that kind of asks them about like what type of activities or various causes that they're most interested in. And then we use that as a way to kind of identify which folks are more interested in sustainability type things. Last year, we did a really fun content video with 2 players who came in and did sorting. And so they like literally sorted through garbage, and we talked about it. And one of them was a pretty good, like, just personality. He's funny. And so it was a cute little video that was popular. And so we try to find ones who are interested, and a lot of our players are from Europe, and they've sustainability is more of a ubiquitous, traditional thing. Like we have a lot of players from Germany. Recycling in Germany is very common because there's a great deposit program. And so there's things where we've managed to find folks who are interested. And so we use them more often for sustainability messaging. We also find that the folks internally, like internal champions, so we like get our VP of stadium ops, our head of housekeeping, the head of sustainability, we get them on camera. We let them be like spokespeople as well to tell the story. So it's not just about like a traditional spokesperson for the club, but rather the people that are actually doing the work can go on camera and to reporters and talk about that kind of thing. So I think those things all help to make it a more authentic story and make people feel like this is a real movement within it, as opposed to like a big corporate, kind of downline corporate initiative, as opposed to what it, which it is in some respects, but the only way it works is because we have people on the ground who are passionately interested in it and monitor it and encourage each other and do things like that. So we do try to like tell those stories as much as possible. That helps then resonate with fans, because then they feel like the personal aspect of it and the emotional aspect of it, which is hard with sustainability because it is kind of removed from people's everyday like experience until it's not, right? So we had a huge tornado here in St. Louis this year, destroyed like billions of dollars of damage in central and north St. Louis. And a lot of that, a lot of it, the damage was because people just didn't believe a tornado could come through the city of St. Louis, because it hadn't happened since most of the people were alive. But because we've suddenly, Tornado Alley has shifted eastward and now we're in Tornado Alley, or we didn't used to be even just like 10 years ago. Suddenly that becomes a much more like personal issue to talk about. And so again, not that we necessarily like tie people's garbage into like tornado damage, but it does help to explain that like extreme weather conditions are a result of climate change. And so now we're moving more into talking about energy and energy consumption and what role we can play being leaders in that, knowing that there is such a strong connection between energy and transportation and climate change.
Yeah, no, wow, no, that's a super powerful example. And yeah, I think it's true. I think it's seemingly, sustainability isn't a part of people's daily lives. I think at least that's the misconception. But then, right, once something unfortunately happens like that, yeah, it's very front and center. I'm curious, 'cause so that's like a very particular example, a very powerful one, but something stood out to me that you said you have community surveys for your
Mhm.
players. I'm curious if you have a similar feedback mechanism for your fans, and like how you how you kind of gather that these certain experiences resonate deeply with fans. Like how do you actually get that feedback from your fans? I think because um some folks watching, I think, might wonder that, okay, what's the best way for me to gather this feedback from my fans so I actually know what they want and what, hits home for them.
Yeah, actually we do. We have post-match surveys. We have quarterly surveys for our season ticket members, and then we have an end of year survey that is a larger kind of overall survey and one of the additions last year was sustainability. So we asked fans about like various sustainability points within what was important to them, what they noticed, their behavior at the stadium. We also asked them, out of all these other community impacts, how do you rate various things that the club does in the community and what that means to you, which is very eye-opening, because probably the largest impact had to do with like community and neighborhood development, which was, we thought was really interesting. And it kind of helps us show that like we can tell when things are really resonating and what messages are getting through and what has less. And so the zero waste has gotten a lot more. We've talked a lot more. And so that is one of the things that has gotten through to people more. that means that like other aspects of our sustainability messaging is still like areas of growth, you know, to help people understand what we're doing in those areas. But yeah, we have those built into our existing mechanisms. And then we also have like a database of about 5,000 fans that have taken like what we call like the Our City Pledge that we can then also activate for various information and things like that. So so we have various mechanisms to try to like to capture what's going on with interest. And then we also do a lot of data collection on like, you know, landfill use, you know, how much extra garbage is coming in. What we don't have is like, at least I've seen so far, is kind of like sorting, like how much is getting thrown into the right sorting container, you know, that kind of thing, which is very difficult to do from a time standpoint, right? Because it's an extra layer of essentially sorting when you're already sorting. Colloquially, we know that the biggest hole gets the most stuff. And so that has made us think about like, you know, in the trash cans, it's like the biggest one is compost, the smallest one is landfill, but that just means most things are going into the compost. And so we're like, okay, well, next time we'll know recycling and compost have to be equal sized and then smaller for landfill. That'll make it a little bit easier, you know, to kind of like encourage folks to, when they're confused, like, or like to try to, you know, that type of thing. But on the whole, like that's the one area that we don't yet have great metrics on, but we do know that overall, you know, we've been able to stay consistently at 90% waste diversion since we've attained it last year. And so it's a lot of that is both back of house and just continuing to make sure that whatever is front of house remains compostable, recyclable, and reduces landfill as much as possible.
Right. Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, again, it sounds like a silly example, but it's true. I think those small things like the opening and the trash cans, that sort of accessibility, I think does make a huge difference for sure. Well, that's kind of a good segue, I think, into you know, kind of like our discussion, some reflections as far as lessons learned, or you know, I would just love to open it up to the three of you. You know, sometimes the best learnings I think come from the unexpected, you know, maybe something that was surprising to you, whether it was a fan reaction or a partner response or something behind the scenes that taught you something new about what a green game can achieve. Yeah, I'd love to hear from any of you on maybe something that stood out to you or a lesson you learned that was a bit unexpected.
I'll start. I actually learned a lot from Heidi uh, today because we're partnered with Coke, and in our discussions, I didn't know that they had games that we could probably use to help educate fans. So in my next meeting with them, I will most definitely bring that up and see if we can make that happen. So didn't expect to, I knew I would learn something today because I'm always looking to learn, but that was a good one to learn. So thank you, Heidi.
You're very welcome. I think I will say that Coca-Cola has just been a fantastic partner with us. So kudos to them. And the addition of these Clearstream bags that we started last year for one game that now we're using for every game outside. And I guess I wanted to make sure people know that that was just our, you know, outside at Touch Downtown, but we also have our bins inside twinned and have over, I think it's over somewhere 350 to 400 trash and recycling, you know, containers as well. So it's test, try, and a lot of just different things. You just have to kind of work through it.
Right.
I would say trying to think of what a good lesson learned is. I think again, like focusing on things that are very personal to the experience of the fan. So talking about like how much waste was produced at a match, or removed from landfill in a very clear term that makes sense to them, like how much pounds, show a garbage bag, use a term that they'll feel like nobody really knows what 2 tons looks or feels like, but if you say it's like fills up the stadium, or it fills up like, you know, 2 minivans or something, whatever the number is, it'll help kind of make people feel and understand a little bit more. Trying to during the green game, we bring in members of the community who are sustainability leaders for our exceptional neighbor interviews, and we interview them during halftime, and so they tell us about like what they're doing in the community. And we have organizations that we have something called the Exceptional Neighbor Corner, where it's free tickets for community groups that applied and are nominated, and we choose green themed ones for that particular match. So it's volunteers and folks in the community who are involved in sustainability. And then we also highlight then food purveyors, local artists, local musicians, who are all focused on sustainability as part of their art or food or cuisine. So that gives us another way to show hey, sustainability is not just about what's going on in the stadium, but there's artists who focus on recycled materials for artwork. I think last year we had a very large, with a bunch of aluminum we collected in 2024, we created a huge Hellcat, aluminum sculpture that out of recycled water bottles, I believe. So that was something that we created with trash or recycled aluminum that was created in Energizer Park. We have MLS creates a kit that is that's made from recycled ocean plastic that we highlight during the matches and the players wear pregame. So that helps kind of do it as well. And then we just have other elements of everything from the giveaway to, features, food, all that kind of stuff is themed on that as well to help show that it's more than just the recycling and the trash and the energy, but there's a whole lot of elements to how people are into it. And I think that sense of community and purpose and just a little bit of what's the word? Trendiness, helps to kind of and we bring in influencers as well to come and do things like that as well on Instagram and social media, all those things to kind of help show that it is something that is ubiquitous and normalized and even cool, as opposed to perfunctory and just something we do in April, even though it is something we do in April.
Right.
just like everybody else, right? So
Yeah, awesome. Oh my gosh, no, I think this is super helpful, and I hope it's insightful, I think, to folks on the call to see, I think, so many different perspectives and experiences. I think it's easy, I think, to assume that maybe venues comparable in size or age or whatever, I think might have similar experiences, but I think it goes to show that there's just so many different pieces that go into it, but also I think a lot of really key and I think low lift things that folks can probably replicate or learn from, I think, in your own venues. But yeah, I think, Mika, with that, maybe we can take a look at some of the audience questions that have come in and spend a little time on those.
Yeah, absolutely. I am not sure if the Q&A box is working right now, but I have a couple questions for myself that I'd like to ask, so I'll just go ahead and do that. For Courtney and Mario specifically, I know you both purchased renewable electricity to some capacity, whether to cover all your games or maybe just one game. So I'm just curious if you could share your experience, how that worked, and then, the feedback that you got. I know Mario, you talked about that story, is the game going to actually be powered by renewables? But what was the process for you to go through procuring the renewables for your green game?
For me, it was fairly simple. We work with our local, I work with our local utility provider, and they have a department that does all of this. And so I I got in touch with our actual business rep, and he connected me to the right people. Uh, what I had to do was provide her with like 5 or 6 games, so that they could do the average of what we use on a game, and just gave me the the number of recs that I would have needed to cover a single game, and we just purchased straight from our utility provider. So it was very simple. The only caveat I can and that was me and Andrea, this fun story she was talking about is make sure that you word it right when you send it out to the media, because my managers all thought that if something went wrong, that we would lose all electricity in the building and we would have to forfeit the game. So they were freaking out like 2 days before the event. So I tried to explain to them that no, this does not mean that they're unplugging from one thing to plug it in another. We're just purchasing resources that certify that we're buying you renewable energy. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the ours is kind of, when we first did it, was lumped in with a larger, we had like announced we were LEED Gold certified. We had our green games, was kind of part of a larger piece. And we did the same thing. We purchased energy credits that was decoupled. It was some of those like, kind of like wind energy was created out and somewhere else and then decoupled and sold, the benefits kind of thing. And we purchased enough credits to be able to do our entire MLS games for 2025. We've actually had over that, like we bought more than we ended up using for energy this year. But it was actually enough to then help attract a sponsor's input. So now our energy credits are powered by Energizer. So that was something that was really good, was that we found a sponsor who was, a partner who was interested in that program and how it was being managed, and putting their name on it. So that allows us to then talk about it more in game and kind of make it more of our traditional in-game features to talk about that. Like everybody else, the real estate on the video board and other assets are very carefully controlled, and it's hard to get the ones that are purely community or impact based, because you have to save a lot for just general communication, sporting, and sponsors. And so to have like a sponsor be part of that allows us to have that communication up every match, which is great. But I say in general, people are not always like, that's a real tough one for the public. Like they don't completely understand what energy credits are. It was hard even internally to describe what they are. And so I think it's one of those things that is good because it sounds good, but there's a long way from the market completely understanding it. So the more you can get help from a sponsor or other folks to help tell that story helps, are working through various ways to, and now I feel like a lot of utility companies have a lot of programs that are very nuanced and interesting. And there's just a lot more coming into the market. At least there is in Missouri and Illinois, regarding working with your local utility company. That might be a way as well to do something interesting there.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you both. Looks like we did have a question come in from the chat, which is kind of related to your answer right there, Courtney. So we're talking about an individual green game. How, from all your perspectives, do you translate some of the successes you have from your individual green game and start doing this every single game to make, this is just normal practice. We're hosting green games every game. So what do you feel like is needed to make that transition?
For us, the biggest thing is we had ownership group commitment. Second was commitment from facility operations to make the necessary changes to do on-site sorting and to apply for grants and various things to make the process more effective. Also Joe Abernathy, who could not make it onto the webinar today, but he was, he works directly with sponsors and partners, works with Pepsi, works with AB, works with folks to try to find innovative ways to make the process even better. And so having folks on board who are willing to put in the extra legwork on basically on top of your job to a degree, to find ways to get the process going is very important, I think. For us, it is absolutely all matches are green matches. We just highlight them on the green match day. But that's how it gets done. We meet every 2 weeks. We go through troubleshooting. We work with Honeycomb. We do like a lot of different things to make sure that there is various levels of, there's like 4 of us who go to the Green Sports Alliance Summit every year, that we try to like find ways to troubleshoot the small things and find better ways to work with our partners to make things like, if you're recycling, do you have a rebate program you're working with? And will your beverage partner work with you on that? We work with our beverage partner, Pepsi, on their Circuit program for returning aluminum. You know, can you work, do you have a local composter? Do you have, is your utility company interested in pursuing some different things? Having these conversations, I think, are really important. And then having the people in the room who can help do that. Not everybody has to buy into sustainability the same way, but they will understand if values align and your sponsors are excited. And we have attracted sponsors specifically because of our sustainability. So it's one thing that I've learned from folks I've met at the summit who have really hit home. And that was a part that you guys talked about too, about how important revenue was and getting sponsors on board and using that as a directional tool to help move the needle when it comes to your own sustainability stuff. And then we really taken that to heart and this year. And so have been able to bring even more sponsors interested in sustainability messaging and community programs than we did even in 2024.
Awesome.
I might add, I mean, I talked earlier about how we used the Clearstream bins just one game last year, and then how Coke, was able to get us more, and we're doing them every game right now out in Touchdown Town. And I kind of just feel like that process has been successful for us. We also do a lot of other events, concerts, Final Fours, big, CFP, big, large events, and we have been able to grow kind of our sustainability program based on having those events where we get the opportunity to just kind of try new things. So I think that's probably been one of the good things for us, because we get a lot of community support through some of those larger events, which is a little different than just our standard Colts 10 games a year type of thing. But it's been very helpful for us, and I have found a lot of support from the convention center side events, because they are, they're out there asking for things. So that helps me push it with my upper management of, we need to do this, we want to do this, and anything that they ask for, we try to accommodate.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I know Andrea has some resources to share, very timely with the webinar and with Green Sports Day coming up. So let me share my screen here so you all can see. Hold on one moment.
While Mika gets that up there, yeah, well, first of all, thank you for sharing, I think, this really incredible insight, because I think it's so important, I think, to hear the real world example. I think obviously resources and ideas, I think, are so incredibly helpful and create the perfect foundation. And at the same time, I think hearing it from all of you who have, again, had such unique experiences is amazing. And I think that those are the kind of, real world examples that we need. But yeah, so thank you, Mika. Before we wrap, I wanted to just share a little teaser, a little quick preview of something that my team and I at Honeycomb Strategies have created, which is called the Green Game Playbook. So this guide is really designed to be a practical how-to for anyone looking to plan a sustainability themed game day. Whether you're launching your first green game or building on years of experience, I think it really provides, I think, a flexible framework for planning and executing and ultimately communicating a really successful event. So on the overview page, you'll see that it covers the full arc of the green game, from getting started and building internal support, to designing meaningful activations or spotlighting partners, mobilizing fans, etc. And then really just closing the loop by celebrating success and measuring impact. And what I love, I think, about this resource is that it's not only theoretical, but it really is drawn from real world examples, just how, the panelists showed today. And the idea is really to give you ideas and inspiration that you can adapt, whether you're working at a small venue with limited resources or at a major arena looking to scale fan engagement in a more long-term way. So yeah, with that, you'll be able to download the playbook after today's session through GSA. All the registrants will receive it via email, and we will also be sending it personally to everyone after this, so you have this resource. And our hope is ultimately that it becomes a tool for you that you can use with your own teams and partners, and just all of your venue to really bring these ideas to life. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Mika. Yeah, and with that, I think we can wrap it up unless there are any other questions from the audience.
Oh, looks good. I appreciate you all joining today, sharing your insights. I hope everyone who was on got to learn a little something, takes it away, implements a green game at their venue. So yeah, thank you all for joining. And once again, if you have questions, you can send me an email, shoot an email over to any of the panelists. But yeah, happy to see you all today, and thanks for participating.
Thanks, everyone.
Fine.